Hey everybody, and welcome back to another screencast. And today I'm going to do something a wee bit different again. I'm going to build a menu component using Vue and Tailwind. And part of the reason I thought about doing this for the screencast is because it's maybe not as simple as you would think. If you look at an example, here's Tailwind UI, and if you look, they've got a menu component here, and it looks reasonably simple, right? You have a button and you have some menu items, and you click the button and it opens and closes the menu. But it's actually harder to build out something like this than you would imagine. And so what I'm going to do is kind of walk through the menu component that I built for Lemon Squeezy, but also kind of explain why I did it the way I did it and where I got my inspiration from. So one of the things that you might know about if you follow the kind of Tailwind world is that they have this package or set of packages, set of components called Headless UI. So if you go to headlessui.dev, you'll see they have a bunch of pre-built components, and they're behavioral components that they use in Tailwind UI and in different things, and they've got React and Vue versions for each. And what these do is these don't provide any styling or anything, but they just provide the behavior required for these components, so like tabs and radio groups. And so like if we go into this menu one here, you'll see that it has this menu and it works, and you can do things like use keyboard navigation to navigate it, and it handles all sorts of stuff. And when you look at the code, you'll see that this is all built from custom components. So it's a menu component, menu button, and all that kind of thing. And actually, if you go to Tailwind UI and try to copy the code, you'll actually see that they use the same thing. They actually use Headless UI here. So this is their recommended way of building out these kind of components, by using their custom Headless UI package, which gives you all the kind of behavioral stuff that you need behind the scenes, so that you don't need to worry about any of the behavior stuff. It's just accessible, well-built components out of the box. So that's all great, and if you use Vue 3, feel free to use this. Use the Headless UI stuff. It's easy and it's free, and you can just use it. And there's all the documentation here about how to use it. But unfortunately, Lemon Squeezy, we built Lemon Squeezy using Vue 2, and we're not upgrading to Vue 3. And Vue 2 versus Vue 3 is a whole other discussion to have. But we use Vue 2 at the moment, and so Headless UI isn't actually compatible. We can't use Vue 3 components in Lemon Squeezy at the moment, which means we can't use Headless UI. So for Lemon Squeezy, I had to build out my own version of this, basically, and that's how this came about. But I definitely took inspiration about how to do it from the Headless UI code, so definitely worth checking out. These are great and really well built components. If you look at the code, you'll see it's all written in TypeScript and stuff, so it's it's probably a bit scary looking if you're used to normal Vue components and just simple kind of HTML type rendering. This is all the behavioral stuff that's in it, and as you can see, it's pretty advanced. They put a lot of effort into making these components work really well in a lot of different circumstances. But it just goes to show how complex building these what might seem like a relatively simple component, like a menu component, just goes to show how complex they can be to build out properly. So what I thought I'd do today, though, is kind of walk through building this. So if we were going to build this ourselves and we're going to build it in Vue version 2, how would you do it? How would you go about doing it? And this is kind of based on how I did it for Lemon Squeezy. So we're just going to go ahead and basically kind of just jump into this and build it out. So if you look at these examples, you'll see that they have these custom components to build out these things. So they've got a menu component, a menu button component, a menu items component, and each item has its own menu item component. And all the styles can be applied, obviously, it's just Tailwind styles. So let's go ahead and build our menu. So I've already just set up these components, but there's nothing in them at the moment, they're all blank. So we're just going to go ahead and build out the structure of these components. So we need a menu as our top level item, and the actual top level menu object is going to handle the behavior for showing and hiding the actual menu items themselves. So this is going to contain the kind of state for that. So remember that. So that's the menu, and then inside the menu we're going to have a menu button, and this is just going to have some button text, something options, and then we want to have our menu items. So think of this as the actual drop down itself. So this is like what the wrapper will look like when it's open. This whole box is the menu items. So in here we're going to have multiple menu item singular components, and each one will just have whatever it is, account settings, and we can just copy and paste a bunch of these for whatever options you want. Let's see, support, and what else is in here? A license, and we'll add one more for, what is it, sign out, just to reflect what's in this Tailwind option. So I've got one too many S's in the closing tags. There we go. So that's the kind of the basic structure of our menu. So you can see how easy that was to build, and how simple this makes it look in terms of the actual component. When you're using this component, it actually makes it really simple to create. But if I go into my site, we'll see nothing at the moment, which I guess is correct. We've got our menu here, but it doesn't show anything. So let's see if we can start to implement some of these components. So we'll start with we'll start kind of at the bottom, as it were. So menu item, this could just be a div, it doesn't really matter. And all we actually really want to show in here is whatever content we've put in the tag. So we're going to use slots a lot when we're building these components. And if you've never used slots in Vue, they work by allowing you to basically output whatever content you put in between the tags of your component, just like HTML. So we've put this sign out text in this menu item component. So if we want to show the sign out text, this is where it'll appear if you just have a default slot with no name. You can do name slots and all sorts of things, but the default slot will look like this. So if I actually copy this, because most of these are going to use slots because that's just the structure that we've used, I'm just going to copy the slots into all of these components. And then hopefully what we should see is that we now have the basics text that they've put in here. So yeah, all of these are slots. Everything in here is like, all of this goes in the menu slot, and this is in the menu button slot, and then all of these items are in the menu items slot, and that's how that works. So that's fine. I guess what we want to do though is to be able to hide this, because these are the menu items, and have this be a button. So let's go to the button one actually, and we'll just we'll change this so that it's actually a button element, and that's probably all we really need to do for that for the time being. We'll make it a button, and we can style it later. But obviously when we click this button, we want it to open and close this menu items component. And so how we're going to do that is we're going to actually track the state of the whole thing in the top level menu component. So we're not going to track the state in any of these subcomponents, we're going to do it in the top level one. So let's add some data here. We're going to let's just call our state is open, and we're going to add a couple of methods that we can use to change this state. So we're going to say open, and is this is open is going to be true, and we're going to say close, and we can do this as open as false, and we can also add like toggle, and we can toggle it depending on the state. Let's just do that. We'll add a toggle method, so we can say this open is not equal to this open, so it'll just toggle it from whatever it was to the opposite. So that's fine. And then that's really actually all we need for this, because what we can do is cheat a wee bit. This is kind of the bit how we're going to do this. What we could do here is we could pass this is open variable in a slot, in the slot scope. So we could pass it in as basically almost like a prop here that could be accessed. Oh, I closed that by accident. It could be accessed in our top level here. So let me just actually bring up that scope slots. Yeah, so what we can do here is add, let me just find where it is, name slots, scope slots, yeah, here we go. So we could add the user to the slot in this example, and so that it can be used in the parent component basically. So it's almost like this subcomponent can make some of the data from within it available when you're using it in the in the parent component and the actual parent component. So we could do that actually. Let's just say we're just going to bind is open to this, and if we wanted to use that in here, just to demonstrate, we could do Vue has a syntax of slot props, like this is how it does it. So if we look at this documentation, you can assign this variable basically to the slot props, and then if you wanted to use this somewhere, you could do, what you could do, for example, is do this, like if slot props is open, we could show the menu items, right? So in theory, this should work actually. So you'll see the menu items have disappeared. The button isn't hooked up, so we can't use that yet. But if I go into the menu and actually toggle this, you'll see that the items open and close. So that's one way to do this, is to use slot props and just to pass this data up, or to make it accessible. And then it can be used however you want in here. You could do whatever you want with this is open prop, and display whatever you want, depending on if it's open or not. But there is another way we can do this, and it cheats slightly, but it makes it cleaner because we don't have to pass all this data around. What we can do, and they don't recommend this, but what we can do is Vue actually allows you to access root components, but also parent components using this $parent syntax. So we can access the parent and child components for that matter, but we can access these components directly. So you'll see that this menu items component here is actually a direct descendant of the menu. So if we were in here in the menu items component and we did this and then $parent, we would actually get this menu component, we get access to this menu component. So if I just get rid of this a minute and go into menu items, what we could almost do here is we could say only show this if the parent component is open, is true. And if I save that, hopefully what we should see is the same thing. Is open source. No, that didn't work. What am I missing here? What is, oh yeah, this is, sorry, this is the problem here. I've imported all the components. It's the same one. Right, there we go. So menu items. So what we're doing here is directly accessing this parent component, which is menu, and we're accessing the isOpen variable. And so we're saying if it's open, show the slot. So if I go back into my menu and tick this, you can see that that works, right? So we're just accessing the parent directly. It's kind of a shortcut. And obviously this only works if the component is a direct child of the menu component, our parent component. But in our case, we're always going to build menus like this, so it's almost like it's okay for that to be a constraint that we have. So that makes things much cleaner. We don't have to pass the slot data about or anything. We can just access this directly. So that's great. So So our menu is kind of working in that sense, but obviously we want to open and close it when we click this options button. So let's go to the options button, and what we can do here is we can listen for a click event, and again we can just use the parent shortcut, and we'll use the toggle method. And so again, I don't know if you're aware of this. This was kind of new to me when I first discovered it. I thought this was cool, but you can actually access or call Vue component methods directly from the component instance. So if you have the component instance somewhere, you can just call these methods. So this menu, again, menu button is a direct child of menu, so we can use the parent shortcut, and within menu we have these methods that we can just call directly. So we can just do parent.toggle, so that's calling this method here just to toggle this as open variable. So again, if I click this now, it should open and shut, which is great. So that works. So that's basically like, you know, a basic working menu at this point. We have these custom components that we have, and it works. So obviously there's a lot more we can do to it. We can make it more accessible, but that's kind of the basics of how this works. So if I go back to Tailwind UI here, let's just style some of this. So I'm just going to copy some of the styles that they have here for different things. So we're going to add this class to our button. We're going to add these classes to our menu. And menu items, let's see if we add this. And we don't need to worry too much about active classes at the moment, so yeah, wrong one. So what are they saying here? Block px4. Now obviously you could add these classes directly in the actual components themselves, but if you don't add them in the components themselves, then you know, you can style these as you wish at whatever point. I'm going to change some of these because obviously, as I've said in my previous videos, we use a different scale to Tailwind. So I'm going to just widen this out a bit. Oh, that's too much. Yeah, that looks okay. And then we'll bring down the padding on these to 1. And we can do the same on the button. Let's just bring down the padding on this so it looks a wee bit better here. There we go. So we have this options menu working, and it looks alright actually. And we could, you know, add some more things here. These aren't clickable elements at the moment, but we can change that. I'll add a cursor pointer to it, and yeah, like these we could change these to links, and so what you would do here if you wanted to listen to clicks in them is you could just add your click handler directly to the menu item and just do whatever it is that you want to do with the click at this point. So that's how they would work. For the menu items, and obviously we can add hover styles and all sorts of stuff, but we don't need to get into that right now. But that's kind of a basic working menu. I'm just going to change it to the left so it's a bit more centered. So I think that looks good. Yeah, and I'm trying to think what else we need to do now. One thing we could do is add some transitions, because obviously this just opens and closes, but if you look at this, you'll see that there's a kind of small transition here. So what Tailwind UI have done is they just use the transition object on the menu item, so we could just do the same thing, hopefully. Just wrap this menu items thing in a transition. Now, one of the things that's cool here is that we can use Tailwind's transition classes directly, because Vue, so this is transition object is a Vue specific component. And if I just go, in fact, I'll just bring this up here, built-in component transitions. So you'll see that like Vue has this built-in component, and it allows you to basically like transition between or add transitions if components are going to be toggled using VF or VShow, and you can use JavaScript hooks, and it has events and all sorts of things. But it also has these props that we can use to add classes depending on what's happening. So as you can see here, they're literally just using Tailwind's classes, and we're adding them at different points just to animate the transition. So if I go back to my component, let's see if this works here. It doesn't look like it works there, but I wonder if what we could do is add it to the actual menu items themselves. So if I go into the menu items component, and I'm just going to add another top level div, and I'm going to put the transition in here, and then just close this out. And so the transition's wrapping the actual div that's getting toggled here. And now you can see there's a quick refresh. You can see it being toggled on and off in opacity. For some reason, the border's hanging out there. I'm not entirely sure why it's doing that. But I think this is because we've put the classes directly in the parent component. So if I let me just take that out of there and add it to the subcomponent which we're doing. In fact, actually, do you know? I know I will do it this way, just because we've added our wrapper here. So you can see that's I'm just realizing, I wonder if this needs to be like that. So we're getting the out transition. I don't know why we're not getting the in transition. It seems to just be appearing. I'm actually just going to change these transitions to the ones that we use in Lemon Squeezy to see if that helps, just in case there's something missing here. There we go. So yeah, so now we've got this kind of nice animation when the menu goes in and out. So that is the basis anyway of a working menu component, and as you can see, it's pretty simple. We haven't done much, just some slots and some transitions using this parent shortcut, and otherwise, you know, it's a reasonably simple and reusable way to build a menu. There's obviously lots more behavior that we could add here. So we could do things like when you press escape, the menu closes, or if you press up and down, it cycles up and down these menu items. The other thing you'll notice that doesn't happen is that when you click outside of this, the menu doesn't close. So that's something that we should handle. In fact, let's look at that, because Headless UI does that. So like if we open this and click outside, you'll notice that it closes. And I'm actually going to try something a bit different, which is basically I'm going to try stealing their code. So you'll notice that they have this use window event. So this is all Vue 3 and TypeScript. So don't worry if this looks a bit chaotic. But really what they're doing is they're listening to the mouse down event on the window, and they get the target element, which will be the button, which is whatever's under the mouse when it's clicked, and the active element. And they're basically, what they do here is if it's already open, or if it's not open, then don't do anything. And if you're clicking the button on it, or if the target is the button, don't do anything. But if you click the items, if you don't click the items, so if it's not the items that you're clicking, so if it's not the open menu, so if you've clicked somewhere outside of the open menu, then you close it. Basically, that's kind of the long and short of what it's doing. So we could probably do something similar here. Let's do, in fact, I'll just actually explain what I did with Lemon Squeezy. So in fact, maybe I'll do the same way. With Lemon Squeezy, we didn't write our own custom code for this. We used a custom directive, which is called Vue, and I think it's called click outside, which is an npm package. And basically all it does is that it just replicates this code here that we've just listened to. So what it does is you can add it as a directive to anything, and when an outside click happens, you can do whatever it is you need to do. And that's what we use in Lemon Squeezy. It's just a kind of a nice Vue-like way to add that behavior without doing anything else. So in fact, let me just use this. Let's just do it this way because it's nice. So we'll do yarn, and we're going to add an in Vue click outside. Whoa. And there's probably a few packages that we could use that do similar things, but we'll just use this one to demonstrate how this works. Right, there we go, it's installed. So it looks like the way this works is you add this vClick outside to the button, and then we do this show the menu if the data or the state is true, and that's kind of how we've done this in our menu component. So we'll do the same thing. So let's so it looks like we import this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our button component, and we're going to add a script, and we're going to import this click outside, and then we're going to add this directive. So this is a directive. A directive in Vue is when you use these V, this V syntax. So this V click outside, this is what a directive is in Vue. And so we're going to say if you click, you toggle it, and if V click outside, really what we want to do is access the parent component, which is the menu, remember, and just close it. At this point, we should just be closing it, and that should be it, really. So let's see if this works. Doesn't work, of course. I know something that I had to do in Lemon Squeezy was actually put this in a function. Does that help? Let's refresh this. There we go. Yeah. So now we click outside of that and the menu goes away. So that's just a kind of simple way to implement this kind of thing. And again, it's one of these awkward kind of afterthought bits of the behavior that's actually really important when you're building things like menus, that makes building these components non-straightforward. And that's part of, it's these kind of things that make it complicated, as I was saying at the beginning, to build out a menu component like this. Anyway, so there's our menu component, a simple menu component using Vue and Tailwind. Obviously, you could style this a lot more, and we could, as I was saying, we could add a lot more behavior if we wanted to, but I think that's probably enough for just now. That gives you an idea of how to do this and how I went about doing it in Lemon Squeezy. But as I said, really, if you're using Vue 3, I couldn't recommend using the Headless UI components themselves. They've put a lot of effort into all the behavioral side of things in these, and it would really be worth checking out if you're using Vue 3 for this kind of thing. But yeah, that's our menu component. So hopefully that's been helpful. As always, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see something in particular, like to see me build out something. Hopefully you found this interesting, and yeah, have a good day.